Hey guys, I'm Meal Before Me, and I'm back with another food review. This time I'm checking out Smart Ones from Kraft Heinz. They're frozen meals you can find at most groceries and at stores like Target and Walmart, and they originated as part of the Weight Watchers brand. So they're marketed as a healthy choice for weight loss, similar to lean cuisine, though whether you consider them healthy or not is up to you. Now I don't know how many there are since their website doesn't work, which isn't a great sign, so I just grabbed every type my grocery had, minus the 4 that were out of stock, for a total of 17 meals. That means it's time for the age-old question, how does it taste? And I'm ready to eat, so let's heat these suckers up. To the table! Same as my snack reviews, I don't do a real-time taste test for grocery items because it would take too long. Instead, I just tell you what I think over the footage. And unlike always, I'll only be ranking each meal by repeatability, meaning would I eat it again? Since I have so many meals to try, I decided to put them in categories, starting with the ones with different packaging. There was only so much research I could do for these, so I'm not sure why the packaging is different, but if I figure it out, I'll put it in the comments. First is pasta with Swedish meatballs, and I won't mix any of these before you see them. I'll show them as they come out of the microwave first. This one smelled great, the noodles were nice and chewy, the sauce was thick, and the meatballs had a good texture. They weren't solid in that weird non-meaty way you sometimes get in frozen meals, even though they look like that. There wasn't that much flavor, but the sauce had some pepperiness to it that made everything taste fine once you mixed it together. Repeatability? Yeah, I'd get it again. Next is General Tso's chicken. Is that how it's pronounced? Nope. I have to say that anytime I get a frozen meal version of this, it looks and smells more like sweet and sour chicken compared to what I get from the Chinese restaurant, which has a thicker, dark red sauce and more heat. Still, I don't mind the taste of this. The flavor is muted, the texture of the rice is a bit hard, but you may like that, and the chicken alone doesn't have that much taste, but it is good with the sauce. The texture is a little bit more like a chicken nugget, but I'm okay with that, and the veggies are a nice texture for me, but they might not be crisp enough for you. Repeatability? No. It's not bad, but it's not my favorite flavor profile or combination of ingredients, and heating it up to finish eating it the next day, it somehow had even less flavor than when it started, which was true for most of these. Next is the mini rigatoni with vodka cream sauce, and excuse the abrupt change in exposure. I realized after the rigatoni shined bright like a diamond that I needed to get rid of that glare so you could see more details. And I'm glad I decided not to bother with smell rankings for these because so far they've all smelled surprisingly good. This one, that vodka smell hit really hard out of the microwave. It had just the right amount of cheese, and while the sauce wasn't the most flavorful, a recurring theme for all of these, I feel like it had enough flavor that along with the saltiness of the cheese, it was pretty tasty, and the chewy texture of the pasta with the not fully meltedness of the mozzarella made for a hearty mouthfeel. Repeatability? Yes. Last in the special packaging category is the crispy bacon scramble. I'm not that picky when it comes to breakfast meals. On the rare occasion that I buy them, I'll get one of those Jimmy Dean meat lovers bowls, and it's the only Jimmy Dean anything I'll eat, but this was decent. The eggs had zero flavor somehow, while the potatoes were very well seasoned. The bacon was tasty, and the sauce also had no flavor, just a hint of salt. So I'd say this is great for breakfast, maybe add a piece of toast, but I can see wanting to add some fresh pepper or more salt to it. Despite that, repeatability is yes. Next, we have what I'm calling the down-home category, the kind of frozen meals you expect to see in any cheap brand. Starting with meatloaf with gravy and garlic herb mashed potatoes. And here's where I encountered the first problem. The mashed potatoes were runny and nearly flavorless, and what little flavor they did have was garlic with a hint of feet. The meatloaf had that TV dinner texture I don't mind necessarily, but with a really canned aftertaste. The gravy was the same as it always is for frozen meatloaf, though oddly enough, mixing all of them together made the off flavors cancel out. That said, what was left still wasn't appealing, so repeatability is no. Next was the Salisbury Steak with mac and cheese, and this decision was even quicker. The cheese had a lot of flavor compared to everything else, but again with a hint of funk. The macaroni had no flavor at all, and you could taste how flavorless it was underneath the sauce, but the Salisbury Steak was the star of the show in that it was gross. I'm not even sure I can eat that, so that's a hard no on repeatability. Last in this category, thank goodness, is slow roasted turkey breast. Usually I like TV dinner turkey and stuffing, and this was a step up from the last two, but still iffy. The mashed potatoes were thicker, and while they didn't taste great, the funk was minimal. The gravy tasted as watered down as it looked, and the turkey tasted like chicken, even in texture, which actually I kind of liked. If it was better seasoned or in a better gravy, I think they might have had something good there, but it wasn't, so they didn't. Repeatability is no. Next up, we have the international category, starting with Santa Fe rice and beans. I noticed this is a really popular frozen meal across brands, and it always tastes exactly the same to me. This was no different. The cheese blend was a bit bland, but the rice and beans were nicely seasoned, and mixing it together, there was actually some complementary layering of flavors there. I love the texture of the rice and the beans especially. The beans also had a really nice flavor on their own. Now, I prefer this as a side rather than the meal. Like, there's something about it that screams meat, but I do like it, so repeatability is yes. Next is the sesame lo mein with veggies, and I was worried about this one because I've never had this from any frozen brand and liked it, and I guess I never will because I hated this. The texture of everything was great, but I hated it, okay? I hated the flavors, I hated the ingredients, I didn't like the sauce, I hate snap peas, I hate water chestnuts, I want to kill them. It's just not for me. So if you like something with a lighter taste that's very veggie forward, you may think this is okay, but honestly, if I wasn't against wasting food, I'd throw it out. Repeatability is nyeh. Next is chicken, broccoli, and rigatoni with cheese. Not really a fan of this one. The pasta was great alone, and the chicken was great alone, but the little bits of broccoli ruined it with this watery mushiness, and the sauce was pretty gross. I tasted it by itself, and I don't know how something with no before taste can have so much bad aftertaste. So if they changed the sauce and swapped the broccoli out for maybe sweet peas, I think I'd like this a lot, but as it is, it's a no for repeatability. Next is creamy basil chicken with vegetables, and this is another one where the sauce by itself has that same funk to it that I can't place, but when you mix it with the other stuff, the funk goes away. Again, I don't know what kind of sorcery that is, but I do know that the chicken by itself tastes fine. The texture is a little weird. You know, the turkey was more chicken-like than this chicken, but it's not bad. The downside is, again, the broccoli. It removes flavor from everything else and makes it worse. So I'm convinced that if they used any other vegetable, this would be better. And there's just so much of the broccoli that I can't get past it. So repeatability is a no again. And I have to mention too that the smell took a nosedive with a lot of these as well compared to the first ones. Next is chicken fettuccine, and I feel like a broken record. You know, the chicken tasted great, but it had a bizarre texture. That, weird solid meat texture like Spam, but harder. And the sauce was bland with an aftertaste of funk. And I know funk isn't that descriptive, even though I keep using it, but all of the things I'm using it for have the same funky aftertaste. It's similar to something that was in a can mixed with the inside of a stinky shoe. Now, the pasta is fine, but whatever they're funkening these meals with, they need to defunk it, because this is another one I wouldn't get again just because of the sauce. And it's always the aftertaste, it's never the initial taste. Repeatability? Obviously no. Next, we've got pasta with ricotta and spinach, and I was genuinely shocked that there's no funk in it. It could use a little salt, but the sauce was fine. The pasta is large and chewy in a satisfying way. The spinach brings nothing to the table, which is fine, because I wouldn't like whatever it brought, and the ricotta tastes kind of like ricotta, not like ricotta and socks. So repeatability is yes. Next is 3 cheese Ziti marinara, and I'm hoping these all redeem smart ones a bit because I've got all the Italian ones back to back. And if you're wondering why I'm fighting for my life right now, I didn't let it sit long enough, so it was burning my hand. This one tasted good. No funk, the pasta had a lovely texture, the sauce had just enough flavor, though I do wish it was thicker, and the cheese gave it a nice salty balance. It also did that thing I like in TV dinners where some of the cheese is burnt, so those bits have more chew and flavor to them. Now, it's not rivaling a 5-star restaurant anytime soon, of course, but would I eat it again? Yes. Next, we have the chicken parm. I was worried about the texture of the chicken more than anything else with this one, and it turns out I was right. I finally got chicken that had that spongy texture I associate with frozen meals. And that's a shame, because the flavor was good. The spaghetti and sauce, when combined with the cheese, was nice and thick, with a decent balance of acidity and sweetness, and a dash of salt. So I don't know, I was torn on this one because overall it's good, but I'm a texture person, so I don't know how I feel about munching on SpongeBob. So for repeatability, I'll split the difference. Would I pay for it again? No, but I'd eat it again for free. Next is the 3 cheese Ziti with meatballs, which I assume would taste like the other Ziti, and I was right, only it was even better because the little meatballs had a bit of that Italian sausage taste to them. No complaints about this one. Repeatability is yes. Next is the angel hair marinara, and I didn't want to prejudge, but I don't think I've ever enjoyed sliced zucchini or squash in a sauce with a tomato base, and I was right again, so this was another fast one. The angel hair pasta was too delicate for this. It was just mushy, the veggies didn't work, and there was so much liquid. That's another thing I hate about a lot of frozen meals. You know, the amount of liquid they let loose in the wild is crazy, and I think if they took that into account and made sauces and gravies that were concentrated so that when all of that water released, it would mix down to something tasty instead of removing what little flavor the meal started with, all of their meals would be miles better. Regardless, if you like the taste of veggies with mushy pasta, have at it, but repeatability is going to be a no for yours truly. And finally, we have the breakfast category, which has only 2 meals in it, and they're similar, so I'm just trying them at the same time. The first is the ham and cheese scramble, and the second is the cheesy scramble with hash browns. I was worried these might taste worse than the first breakfast meal I tried, and they actually didn't. They were both good, so I'll say up front that repeatability is yes. But the cheesy scramble with hash browns is very potato forward and not with a hash brown flavor. It's more like home fries, while the ham and cheese scramble has that nice smoky saltiness from the ham to break things up. So while I would buy either of these again, I'd only buy the hash brown one if the ham one was sold out. Unless you really like home fries, in which case you might want to get the hash brown one instead. Getting into my final thoughts, I can't remember the last time I heard about Smart Ones, which is why I was curious to try them. And the planets aligned because they were on sale for $2.50 each. They're normally $2.99, which is still cheap if you're basing it on price alone. The least expensive meal kit I've tried was maybe $6 per serving, and that was with the introductory discount. But quality and portion size are factors too. The Smart Ones are all 9 ounces, with a few exceptions, which is similar to the amount of food I've gotten from delivery services, but that's where the similarities end. For example, one of the ready-made meals I reviewed was 12 ounces for 1 serving, which is about 1.5 times more than the Smart Ones, but it cost 3 times more. Plus, the taste and overall quality were much better, like something you'd make at home. And that's pretty much the case across the board. You can spend a lot less with Smart Ones, but you do get what you pay for. And I'm not just saying that because I prefer cooking. I do buy frozen meals for days when I'm not in the mood. I personally like devour meals, but I'll grab a Stouffer's or even a Hungry Man in a pinch. I just don't think Smart Ones are on that level, but they're not on the bottom of the barrel either. That award goes to Banquet. The only thing that brand has worth buying is the French toast with sausage that costs like $1. Anyway, I guess that's my overall verdict. Smart Ones is bottom tier. I commend them for not having as much sodium as a lot of the other ones do, but the flavor is an issue, though honestly, if you don't mind getting around that by seasoning it yourself, for $2 to $3 I guess you can't go wrong. I would just stick to the ones with the different packaging, which seemed to be a little premium. I don't know, they just didn't have the same funk that the other ones did. And with the ones that do have funk, I would go with the pastas. Now, until I'm ready to try another meal kit service, I've been making a list of grocery foods to review, starting with common items like this before getting into more niche stuff. So if there are any grocery brands you want me to check out, leave them in the comments and I might add them to my list. Thanks so much for watching MBM, and I'll see you snackies when I'm backies.